singing at the start of this one, but welcome to season 3, episode 8.
That was an anticlimax.
It was.
I was ready for some like.
No,
it's been one of them weeks, has it?
It has been a little bit. It has been. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Coming to what they call the business end of the season now. We've been on the road. We're going on the road this weekend. I'm delivering a workshop this weekend, face to face. Very excited with some of the coaches from the Rugby League, Female Coaches Leadership and Performance Program. So that's exciting. You know what? I can start to see some of the stuff. You know, it's hard when we talked a number of times in different episodes about the impact and measuring impact and all that. And there was a couple of interactions with players that have happened through coaching members of staff or group sessions. And they're starting to speak a little bit more in line with, you know, the whole bigger picture, thinking like each other, but having a little bit of a challenge, appreciating the togetherness, understanding that time is valuable in certain pockets of the week. So yeah, it was just interesting, just from a selfish point of my role, listening to some stuff without provoking or without even it being a session that I was delivering, and hearing language coming through, listening to what they value, remembering stuff from maybe January or November, October, and kind of go, oh, okay, is that where that fits in? Or do you remember you said this? How can we? So yeah, and we have the end of day session, which has not been mandatory, but it's something that I've tried to encourage us to have. And I have to say, the conversation we're having is really rich. People are sharing. It's usually kind of or it was maybe a 5-10 minutes. Now we're not, you know, we're no problem going into 30 minutes, 35 minutes to do a debrief of the day or share something that was on your mind, or somebody might have noticed something about someone. So yeah, a lot of cool little things happening. Still busy space, but yeah, it's good.
Nice. I've officially finished my 2 games in charge as caretaker manager. Unbeaten. Yeah, but I tell you what, and the chairman said to me, like, this was not in my plan, but the chairman said to me, did I want to do it till the end of the year he decided to make a change? And I was like, no, like, I'll see us through until the new manager comes in.
Right.
Man, it's stressful. Oh God! So we had a cup game on the Tuesday night, playing the team second in the league, drew 3-1 on penalties, and then league game Saturday, way more important. And I must have written down like 14 different starting 11s.
Wow.
Loads of different formations. Just like, well, how are we going to set up? What are we going to do? What are the key things we're going to focus on? And then I also made a really conscious decision. I wanted to phone all the players before. So on Friday night, I called everybody and said, this is the plan. This is the starting team. This is your role. These are the subs. Phone the subs. Talk to them. Explain why. And then Saturday morning, I sent every single player an individual message of 3 things to think about today. So just individual to them, linked to the game. Go into the game. We've set up 4-1-3-2, which was how we played on the Tuesday night. So quite attacking. Mm-hmm. After half an hour, we were getting like just ridiculously overrun. It was carnage, and it was 0-0 still. And I said to one of the lads who was injured, who I asked to kind of help me on the day, I said, we've got to make a change here. We need to go to 4-3-3 and be narrow in the middle, match him up, and stop him playing between the lines because it's killing us. And he went, yeah, I agree. Okay. So this is what I'm doing. So I took off a lad who I gave his debut to. So he had a couple of starts or a couple of sub appearances.
Okay.
But I started him in that game. And after half an hour, I took him off.
Okay.
So he made the tactical change. He went off the pitch on the far side. He walked around towards the bench. I've just gone to speak to him quickly, and he's blanked me, gone straight down the tunnel. And one of our subs has just said, look, do you want to go and speak to him? I said, yeah, cool. So Jerson went in to chat to him. Game's going on. We sort things out. 10 minutes later, lad comes out. I go to speak to him, fist pump. blanked, ignored. And I've said, look, this is tactical, mate. This is not personal. This is tactical. Game goes on. We go in at half time. We talk about stuff. We win 1-0. Cue a humorous amount of memes my way about being the professor, the genius, the blah. It just happened to work that I made a bold tactical decision. But the lad was very upset and just said, I understand it, but I didn't get to show what I can do, and I didn't do this and I didn't do that. And I said, well, it just probably shows me that you don't really understand it, but it's not about you.
Yeah.
We don't get 3 points in the league for being nice to you. We've got difficult things to do. And thankfully it worked out all right and we won the game, but
yeah.
Stressful.
Big decisions there. Isn't it nice look at where I'm standing to say it, but isn't it nice to have the opportunity to quickly dip your toe in the water again in that space and then come back out? Because in the supportive role that you're in, then you get to see that big picture again, go in and have the intensity of all those decisions with the background knowledge and information. How detrimental do you think that is? The statement of ignorance is bliss sometimes comes in, because where I'm coming from is, I guess I know you, and I know that you scan across different sports, the depth of knowledge that you have, the question and curiosity. Was that to your own detriment, thinking about the layers and layers of every decision? Maybe,
but it was more about just feeling the desperation of we need to win this.
Yeah.
But then trying to not portray that onto the players, So I changed our whole half-time approach to a very different one on the Tuesday and the Saturday.
Okay.
And we did something different, and it was very sensible and civil, and we just talked about it like grown-ups,
Wow.
What you see.
Yeah.
Gave them 5 minutes. We didn't go in as coaches, just the first 5 minutes, just chat.
Just chat.
Split to 2 units if you like, but we'll come in and just tell us what you've been seeing.
Yeah.
But we'll focus on the last 10 minutes, not the shambles of the 35 minutes before that I got wrong. But you enjoy the buzz of it after. It is definitely a level of stress because and pressure being that thing of have you got the skills to deal with the moment that's in front of you.
Yeah.
But it was enjoyable, but equally I'm happy to pass it over. But it's going to be one of those kind of career choices. I'm now thinking, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, what about that?
Yeah, exactly. So no.
Cool. Well, congratulations. That's
Cheers.
Yeah.
So tell us what you've been noticing this week.
So I'm in the middle of cheering for GB Snow Sport and some other countries that are around, but particularly because, the last few years at UK Coaching, I had an involvement with some of the coaches and some of the athletes, listening to how they work abroad, the different adaptations, dry slope scenarios. It was only toe in the water conversations that I did have with those people, but it's always amazing when it's everywhere and people get very invested in it. Now, it's interesting that, in a football world where there's TVs everywhere, people still were interested to watch some of it. And then others were like, oh, I didn't even know it was on. And I imagine the people in other sports are similar, because it doesn't sometimes have the build up that the Olympics of Tokyo had into, Beijing's on and where they're at and who's this. So I listened to Amy Fuller and Simon Mundy did a podcast recently, and now she's going to do some commentating. So I was drawn into some of the events that were this week. Charlotte Banks didn't do, I think, so great compared to what she had expected, but obviously in my eyes, I'm like, this is incredible and well done, etc. But what I did notice was the interview. It brought me back to a little clip that I had seen on Twitter. Here it is on our Coach Conversation Twitter page. They had an interview, or both interviews, journalists, and wanted to know what went wrong. So there was a kind of, I imagine they're thinking of the spectators wanted to get the nitty gritty and, this is a dramatic, like Charlotte didn't progress. This particular clip that I saw there is Steph Curry's clip where he hasn't shot well. They're talking about the dream team being back together down there with Clay. And I just think everybody wants to get the nitty gritty, and the silver bullet, what was missing. And the difference was, Steph turned around and said, no excuses. I'm just not shooting well. And they were picking and picking. And then when Charlotte was interviewed, literally like still sweating, still, you know, all kind of, oh gosh, what's just happened? And the interview's in there like, tell us more, tell us more. And she's like, oh, the wind picked up. There was probably a few mistakes in there. Oh gosh. And tried to make some stuff to feed back. And I thought about excuses in general, like since that moment, and then saw this interview again, thought about the interviewer and then the athlete or the coach, and the idea that actually sometimes there isn't an excuse. You know, sometimes there isn't a reason why something has happened, that you dwell on it and then that can cause detrimental effects. But also I'm very keen to explore reflection and debriefing, be it peers or coach, athlete or units, whatever it is. So yeah, that's where I'm at, that kind of mixy space of actually, we don't need to unpick stuff in massive detail sometimes. And it was the first time in a while that I'd seen somebody of kind of his platform and Steph Curry go, you know what? No excuses. I didn't shoot well. And he's come back, I think, the following game or a couple of games later, he hit high numbers. So it's interesting.
At what stage, where do you place your line? So final whistle, referee, umpire, end of your event, end of your round, you know, is that it then? Or, and therefore you don't then think about it? Or do you place your line further along that is right up to the start of the next game event? Or do you put it somewhere in the middle or somewhere towards one end? Where do you place your line about where you draw under it and go, right, that's done now, we put it to bed, we move on? Where's your line?
That's a great question. And it's changed over the years. Shocker. So my playing career was really mixed because I had it at home. So the games would be videoed, or actually when I swam, let's go before basketball, it was 1995. No, I'm joking. So we had videos of me swimming where we'd critique them. So my dad wasn't qualified as an analyst and wasn't a swimming coach. But yes, he thought, you know, why can't you beat her? What's going on here? Look how slow you're off the block. Then we go to the basketball and then we'd watch that again. So it was a hot debrief. I lived next to the gym. So on home games, I would do the little see you later, well done. We'd get our food and I would literally go home and it would be there. So it was quite intense. The resources that we had in the early days from a basketball perspective, we didn't have a lot of the top software. So they tended to be delayed. So they could be a Saturday night game. You might not get analysis or video till Tuesday. That was official. That was from your GPS, your shot chart, your clips. And then how to navigate that. Some people were way off. So it was really interesting back then. So I tried to tweak that going into coaching and do kind of top load it within 48 hours to have like evoked whatever it is, their perception, chat it, have it in the relationship between the reflections and then the coaching staff or the players change. So that whether it was international coaching or club coaching or even school basketball at quite a lower level, like getting used to the conversation, getting used to the dressing room scenario and feel, to now where we've had ample conversations with the players. What do they like? And some of them will say, oh, you know, we love earlier in the week. We love just getting stuck into it. We use the reflections through a piece of software we have. We're actually doing a study with Liverpool John Moore this year on reflections. So there's some, you know, we really want to see what we think exists and what works for them so we can be better informed. But they're all on board. Within 48 hours, they fill out some questions that we've put together. They'll do their clips. Sometimes in the week, we go to Wednesday or Thursday. And I've had a chat with the coaching team and the wider performance support team to say, oof, if we're going into late Wednesday and Thursday, and then we're still looking at what we did wrong or how we're framing that, who's bringing the clips, what kind of clips are the staff feeding into, what are they bringing? So now what we have, the leadership group came back last week and said, can we move from individual to units? And can we share amongst units? So that level of fluidity is really beneficial. But we've trialed, you know, a round table coffee morning, which we'll still do. They have Huddle. They have access to Huddle to do all that, but it's changed over the years. You know, some was the resources and what we had access to kind of look at the timeline. I've seen really negative impacts to hot debriefs.
Okay.
I've seen over the
In
years.
what way?
Yeah. So If I use basketball, where the parents tend to be in closer proximity to what I'm even seeing on football, even though it's just a pitch wide, if they come to watch a game, you had a parent with an opinion who would then come onto the court and then like to tell either the coaching staff or the player how awful they were. In some cases, you had how brilliant, and then that player might have only played 2 minutes, and you're kind of going, oh, how do we balance this expectation? But very rarely did I witness it being the right balance. It was either evasive and the parent was out the door and said, yeah, great game, get in the car, we're leaving, or I'll see you at home or whatever. But now what I'm noticing, and we've done a lot on parents in sport, and there's brilliant people, as we've mentioned, out there. So it's understanding the impact that the support group can have, and that when people finish on a basketball court, you might have a dad that came on and said, I can't believe you missed that layup. What about the 10 points and 8 assists they had, or 10 rebounds? And that reframing of scoring points or scoring goals doesn't make you, whatever, the best player or this, or doesn't signify development. It's the collective kind of performance indicators that can, or your own goals, what you set. So yeah, it's really, really interesting. But I have seen, even from a coaching point of view, where coaches have been like, oh, and thinking back to that comment that I saw during the week where I mentioned games were won and lost in the final seconds. Now, that comment that I made during the week was in reference to rugby, where the English rugby player Kevin Dickey made a decision and then apologized the next day. And people were like, oh, you're great, you're amazing. And I thought, maybe he did it for that motivational support, but putting on social media, you're always going to have some people who want to unpick you. So I thought, if we put a lot of weight, or we don't clarify where the success is or the development, or where those games are won and lost, it can be really detrimental. It can skew people's perception, in my mind anyway, because, I've said probably here before that football's the space I'm in at the moment, but basketball, we definitely did this. Like, coming out at the start of the game, so important. First, the impact that you make, the tone that you set, how referees read the intensity you're going to bring to the game, so they can kind of match their consistency to the rules and, regulate how they officiate the game. Coming into the half, where there's a lull, coming out of the half, where you want to ignite and put your stamp on the second half, and you're clear on how to fix and stuff. And then the tail end, which is one portion of this. So yeah, there's an all over the place, but I just think it comes back to the surface every so often with people's ideals of what a good performance was, and a player kind of going, oh, it's crap again today. But based on what? That training session was crap. Based on what? And where's the positive? I'm not saying it needs to be bells and whistles, but I think sometimes I'm known as the happy person at work. Here she is, making a jolly out of everything. I'm not saying the positivity all the time leads to performance, but there's definitely a strand that we can pick up that doesn't have that deficit lens on everything.
So there was so much good, rich thoughts coming out in that last
blurb
little moment. If you had to sum that all up into something that you think would be a 1 or 2 sentence summary for a coach to think about, how would you frame that?
For a coach, I'd say, do you reflect with your team or on your own with your coaching team? If so, what does it look like, and how often do you revamp it? Is it having an impact? Every conversation matters. That's probably where I go with that. Lovely. Thank you. Put on the spot, and I'm like, oh, I should have said that. Gosh, I'd say we're moving through time, are we?
That's it. We're good.
That's it. We're wrapping up. Right. Okay. At Coach Convo, we have some great topics coming up over the next couple of weeks as we move through the season. At Coach Convo, you can find us on Twitter, coachconversation@gmail.com. Down we go below. Check out some of those tweets and let us know what you think about excuses, about when a game or a competition can be won and lost, rotations, player communication, and managing expectations. Loads covered there today. See you next week. Thanks for joining.
Bye.